It hasn't even started, you know what I mean?
Okay. Sit back further. If you sit back further, you can see.
Hi, Bernie.
Oh, you're still awake.
Barely.
I didn't give you a break.
Bernie, you put everything on the cart?
Huh?
Did you find the cart? Did you put everything on the cart?
Yes, it's already charged. But I
And
assume you can cancel it up to a certain amount of time before the
Or
trip.
3 days before, I think.
How many?
3 days, I think, before.
Before the event?
Yeah,
Oh,
But there's only one that will waitlisted for that first day. That
they got the wait listed on the
Oh.
first day.
you're zip lining, right? You're doing all the zip lining? Actually,
done that, been there, done that already. That's a great fun. But I don't think Tammy's going to want to do that.
I
I
don't
did
want to do it
once.
either. I don't know, I'm afraid of that
You know
stuff.
zip lining, Harold?
I've never had, no.
You've
I have no
never
trouble with my, I have no trouble with my zipper. Who I don't want to go zip lining. I'm not taking any chances.
I used to be crazy. I would do everything.
I remember people
Mary Bernie.
in the garment district, the parents, my parents' generation, that's what they were doing in the garment
zip-
district in Manhattan.
Oh, yeah? What were they
Zippers
doing?
and buttons.
Oh,
Hello.
hey, guys.
Hello there.
You don't see me.
Shavuot
Hi.
Hey,
Blonde hair.
I think you need a smaller chair.
No, you need a support.
Okay.
Me.
Thanks for your.
Hi, Susie.
Hello.
Hi, Mario.
Hello.
Have a good week, everybody. We are on Pasuk Dalid, Perak Aleph. We spent 2 weeks ago in an introduction. We continued the introduction last week, and we began learning Pasuk by Pasuk. We'll go over a little bit the Pasuk Dalid. We discussed that in the third year of his reign, when he calculated it was 70 years after the Galus of Yechania, he felt it was safe to use the Kalim of the Beis Hamikdash because there was no threat anymore, because if the Beis Hamikdash was not rebuilt, then all of the fear that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to do something went away. We talked about him throwing a big party. Some of it was he had taken Vashti, who was Nebuchadnezzar's granddaughter, as a wife. That was one of the causes for the feast. Poras Umodai, there were two people, two different types of people that created one empire. Darius the Mede was a Mede, and then Koresh was the first Persian, and then Achashverosh came after Koresh. And there was we learned about a medrash in Masechta Megillah. Sometimes the kings came from the Medes and the governors came from the Persians. Sometimes the kings came from the Persians and the governors from the Medes. Achashverosh was certainly a Persian. we said that
He ruled for 14 years.
we said that Hapartamim were the either royal descendants. It's not clear whether that's a Hebrew word or a Persian word. We don't see it anywhere else in either Sefer Ezra or Sefer Daniel. When we said B'Sheves HaMelech, by Amimahim Kisheves HaMelech, that because he had Yishuv Adas, he was comfortable, he wasn't anxious because the 70 years that had been prophesied had passed. Okay. So one of the purposes of the party was Baharoto es Osher Kivod Malchuto. He wanted to show off his wealth. We said that Nebuchadnezzar had been given tremendous wealth, and Koresh was given it to by Kodesh Baruch Hu because he allowed the Jewish people to go up to Yerushalayim. And basically, Achashverosh took over all of this wealth. He had, of course, confiscated a lot of wealth from the people. That he didn't show, because he didn't want people to recognize the things that he took them. But he showed his personal wealth. The Pasuk says, again, Pasuk Dalid, Baroso is Osher Kavod Malchuso, Ve'es Yikar Tiferes Gdulaso, Yamim Rabim Shmonim Umiat Yom. So the word Tiferes, so in the Torah, the Big Day Kahuna, it says L'chavod u'l'tiferes in Shmos Perek Kafchet. So the word Tiferet is a remez for the Big Day Kahuna. He wore the Big Day Kahuna. That's the word Tiferes Gdulaso, referencing the Big Day Kahuna that was looted during Nebuchadnezzar's conquest. That's what it says in Masechta Megillah. Why does it say Shmonim U'Miyat Yom, 180 days? So the Vilna Gaon says that this treasure of Nebuchadnezzar, there was 1,080 different treasures, and they were buried in the riverbed of the Euphrates. And Hashem had shown the hiding place to Koresh, as I said, as a reward for giving orders to rebuild the temple. And now Achashverosh, who had inherited that fortune, he displayed all of this to the guests. He showed 6 treasures a day. So 6 times 180 is 1,080, says the Vilna Gaon. How do we know 6? Because Osher, Kvod, Malchut, Yikar, Tiferes, Gdulaso. So that's 6 different treasures or types of treasures. The Medrash and Esther Rabbah says, how did Achashverosh have such wealth? Amrav Tanchuma Nebuchadnezzar Shachik Mochik. He gathered all the money in the world, and he was very stingy. Kivin Shanat Lamus Omar Bani Anich Kol Momen Zele Evil. He didn't want to leave all this money to his son Evil. Ahmad v'Gazer v'Asas Finas Gdola Shel Nechoshes. He made copper ships. Mileotan Mamon Vitminam Befrat. He filled them up with wealth, and then he sunk them in the Euphrates. And the day that Koresh announced that the Jewish people could go back, Kadosh Baruch Hu showed him where it was. Some learned that the 180 days, the first day was just as wealthy, was just as lavish as the first day.
He showed it to Achashverosh, correct? Not Koresh.
No, he showed it to Koresh. Yom Sha'amad Koresh, the Gazer Sheyivne Beis Hamikdash. Remember, Hashem showed it to Koresh as a reward for allowing the Jews to go back. And then, remember, there was one svara that Achashverosh is related to Koresh. Others say no, he happened to find it and then he bribed himself, and that's how he became Melech. Two different versions. But it originally was Nebuchadnezzar's that went to Koresh. Koresh had conquered it after he had conquered Bavel. Actually, Nebuchadnezzar had sunk it, and Hashem revealed the hiding place to Koresh. Pasuk Hey, Uvimlot hayamim ha'eleh. After the 180 days, Asa melech ha'amnim tzim b'Shushan b'Yirah. He made a private party for the inhabitants of Shushan, his capital city. Because for the big party, the 180-day party, they came from all 127 provinces. L'migadol v'katan mishteh shivat yamim b'chatzar ginat bitan hamelech. This was in the court of the garden of the king's palace. Now, Rav and Shmuel have a machlokas in Megillah 12a. One says that it was smart to invite the distant subjects first. Because the people in Shushan, he could always win their loyalty because he lived there. The other Mandomer says, no, he was foolish for doing that. First, he should have entertained the inhabitants of his own city so that if the outsiders rebel, the people of his city would support him. Now, on this pasuk, the Gemara asks, why did the Jews of that generation deserve extermination? Why were they chayiv kloya? So the Gemara answers, because nenu ma'oisa suda. It says they derived pleasure from the suda. You notice the Talmud doesn't say they ate. It doesn't say, oh, achlu min suda. It says they nenu. For example, if they did eat, the Jews could always say, well, they were forced. It was oinus. The king forced us to do it. And if they wouldn't eat, they might be killed. So the sin was that they enjoyed themselves and actually participated in all the festivities. Now, when it says Hanimtseim b'Shushana Bira, the Me'am Loas says that the Nimtseim are Jewish notables, the Gedolei Yisrael. And they were there too. But Mordechai made a decree that no one should stay. So the Gedolim left. And most of the Meforshim say that even though they didn't partake of the foods, their mere presence at such a orgiastic type of environment, that was sinful. When it says Lemi Gadol Vad Katan, it means that small people were served as lavishly as the great. It means there was democracy there. Now, the Medrash Lekach Tov says that the party extended from the first day of Nisan until Tishrei. It was his third year of his reign until the fourth year of his reign. And the Ummah Sa'olam, they count their reign from Tishrei. So from Echad b'Nisan till Echad b'Tishrei, then 7 days for the Chol Ha'am. That was Midalad Tishrei, and until Motzei Yom HaKippurim. And when it says Bayom HaShvi'i, it was Shabbos and Yom HaKippurim. They knew, Achashverosh knew on Yom Kippur they're not going to eat. So that's the whole concept of bringing Vashti. And he requested Vashti to come without any clothes on. And all the women would come like her. And there would be, as I said, like a big orgy. And there would be znus, even on Yom Kippur. That was Achashverosh's plan. That's why the name Purim is Yom Kippurim, right? Yom Kippurim. There's a remez that this all happened, that it was going to be Yom Kippur, and that's the name Purim, like Yom Kippur. The whole nace of Purim it was similar to the Eitzah that Bilam, right after Bilam failed to curse the Jewish people, what did Bilam tell Balak? Send your women out. And in fact, that worked. And there was a huge plague and many people died because they were involved in znus. Same thing was happening here with Achashverosh. And the Medrash says, Amar Rav Yitzchak Navcha, Haman Arasha, Ba'alila Gdola Ba'al Yisrael. Amar Aman Achashverosh, Eloheim Shel Elu Sone Zima. The Jewish people's God hate sexual immorality. Hamed Lehem Zonos Vasilem Mishte. Bring prostitutes, make a big party, and force them to come. They'll eat and drink. And when it says Lasos Kirchon Ish Va'ish, every man will do what he wants. That's when Mordechai got up and made an announcement nobody should come. Because the whole point was not to eat at the Suda, but to be involved in Znus. And Haman was successful. Many important Jewish people went to the party and were nenu misudaso shalos Russia. The Medrash says, Amar Rabbi Shmuel, Shmona Aser Elef Chamesh Mos Holchu L'Beis HaMishte. 18,500 Jews went to the party. V'achlu v'shasu v'nishtakru v'niskalkalu. They got drunk and they participated in znus. And the Satan got up in front of Kadosh Baruch Hu, was Malshin, and that became the whole problem with Haman. And it's in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Why was the generation of the Jews of that generation deserving of extermination? Now, we have to understand, Znus is Nisr D'Rabbanan, in a sense. It's not, why should you be Mechayev destruction? Says the Rambam in Hilchos Macholos Asuros about not eating unkosher stuff. V'yesham dvar machem asros chachamim. There were things that the chachamim prohibited for them eating. Aval pishen lisron ikim ben Torah gazru aleim k'dei l'srachik ben akum. These are, we have certain restrictions. We're not allowed to eat. For example, pasakum, gvinas akum, yayin nesach. All of this is that we should stay away from going and not mix with them, and will lead to znus. Asr lishtasi moem, even yayin, even without worrying about yayin nesach. Asr lechol pitan, we can't eat from their bread, or bishulem, bishul akum, even if there's not trephis there. There's even a question whether even this gzeira even existed at this time. It all happened later. Some say that they did eat chaylev and they ate dam, which is chayv kores. That makes more sense because then there's a chiyuv misa there. And the fact that they also, we're going to see, he brought out his big day kahuna. So the Jewish people should have been crying, tearing their clothes instead of participating in a happy Suda. And it shows that they're not waiting for the binyan Beis HaMikdash. They were misyayish from the Geula. It's that chet that was goyzer kloya for them. That's the Talmid of Rabbi Shimon ben Yokiva, of Shimon ben Yochai. And that they didn't listen to the Chachamim, Mordechai the Sanhedrin, that told them not to participate. So they were like a Zakin Mamre, who was also put to death. And there was obviously Rayud Avodah Zarah, that there were Avodah Zarah things going on there that they should have stayed away from. The Bnei Yissaschar says that the koach of Haman was like the koach of the Nachash that seduced Chava to eat. Same thing, they seduced the Jewish people to eat at the Suda. Many explain that the Jews thought that by snubbing Achashverosh, who is there in Golus, they're under the protection of the king, they have to be Makir Tov to the Melech. And he's trying to be Machnis Orech. We have to participate. They made a mistake. So, for example, we daven for the Shloma of the Malchus. We say a tefillah for America. But to participate in a Goyish orgy, especially when the Gdol Yisrael tell you to stay away, some things we have to be close with them, and sometimes we don't. And remember, this is a time, 70 years has gone by. There was Koresh already given them permission to go. This is a time of Geula. So they took a step back by going to the Suda. Let's go weiter. Pasuk Vav. Chur karpasut cheles. Hangings of white fine cotton and blue. Achuz b'chavlevutz vargaman, held with cords of fine linen and purple. Al glile chesef amudei sheish, upon silver rods and marble pillars. Mitot zahav chesef, couches of gold and silver. Al ritzefat bahat bashesh v'dar v'socharet, on a pavement of green and white, shell and onyx marble. This is an outdoor banquet, like we said, in the garden. And there were oriental curtains hanging. Now, those of you who have a Megillah, and when we lay in the Megillah in Shul, you follow along in the Megillah, you'll notice that the chet of the word chur is big. And the chet is a remez that on that day, which was the seventh day, Achashverosh wore the big day kahuna of the Kohen Gadol, who wears 8 begodim. That's why the letter chet, which is the numerical 8, reminds us of. And he was punished for that. The episodes of Vashti, her death, his embarrassment, and his depression.
Did we ever find those big day kahuna after that?
You mean
The Kohen Gadol?
you mean archaeologically?
Oh, no, nothing was ever this. I mean, we're learning it out, right? But,
No, by Sheni, we had Big Day Kahuna.
no, I'm saying, but we learn out that he took it, that he had it. He must have had it from somewhere.
He had it from the Nebuchadnezzar
Yes,
that
sir.
they destroyed based on Migdash Harishon.
They took the big day kahuna, okay.
They brought the Kalim and they brought the Big Day Kahuna.
Okay, put it on mute.
Ernie, can I read to you from the Alshich, an interpretation?
Please.
Achashverosh made a banquet that gave pleasure to 4 of the 5 senses. The sense of taste was stimulated by food and drink. The sense of sight was delighted by the beautiful hangings and decorations. The sense of smell was satisfied by the perfume of the garden's blossoms. The sense of touch was gratified by the fine couches upon which they sat, which is all in this pasuk, which was there for each guest. The only sense that was not provided for was the sense of hearing. Although the king had the finest musicians, he did not provide music at his banquet. People had different tastes in music, and it was impossible for them all to enjoy it or to shut it out.
Okay.
That's perhaps part of the reason why they sinned, because they were overwhelmed by these
Beauty.
senses being stimulated.
Mhm. So the Ponovitch Shirov Rav Kahanim in Zatzal, in the name of the Alter from Kelm, points out that Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemra. Esther is in Tanakh. It's written Baruch HaKodesh. Therefore, every word, every letter is coming to teach us something. What is the point, they asked, to tell us about the richness and the wealth of this party? It's a party. What's the point? So eventually Achashverosh is going to demand that Vashti Amalka be brought without clothes in front of her. And she's going to refuse. And the king is going to get angry. Now, even the most low of people are not going to call their wife to come unclothed in front of other people. And this is the king of Persia. How did Achashverosh come to this? So this is what leads to it. First, Chur Karpasut Chelis. His whole she'ifa and desire is to gratify his senses, somewhat like what Bernie said. Desire for money, gaiva. And he didn't hold back on anything that would fulfill his taiva, what his eyes see. So in this way, he went lower and lower until to the point where he did something that really very uncivilized, step by step. So that's it's like an addiction. You become connected to it. And the Gra says the same thing. The Yetzer Hara is machnis step by step. Little bit, you become desirous, you want to eat good food and drink. And then you want expensive clothing. And then you want nice linens. And then you want gold and silver. And then you want pearls and diamonds. Step by step, you go, your desire for things is not abated. And
Listen, for our business, it's a good thing. But Ernie,
it's a good thing. No, it's a good thing in moderation.
Yeah. The Yalkut Shimoni says the verse continued to describe the extravagance of the feast. The wine was drunk only from golden goblets, yet no drinking cup was used more than a single time, and no two goblets were alike. As magnificent as the utensils were, when the holy vessels of the temple were brought in, the golden splendor of the others were dimmed, they turned dull as lead. So it seems like they brought in these kalim first, the other kalim that they had, and then they brought in stuff from the Beit Hamikdash.
Right.
That's what the Yalkut Shimoni says.
Mm-hmm. I want to say again about the chet, the big chet, about Chur Karpasut Chelas. In the second parak in Bereshis, it says Behi Baram, that the world was created Behei. And here is a chet. What's the difference between a hay and a chet? So a hay has a little pintala opening, right? When you draw that little leg of the hay. So if you fall from underneath as a sinner, you can always crawl back in to the top. So the world was created for Bali Tshuva. There's always an ability to come back. But a chet is just open on the bottom. And for example, that's the difference between chametz, which is with and matzah, which ends with a hay. So also about Bali Tshuva versus the ability not to have Tshuva. So, Pasuk Zayin. Ve'ashkos b'chlei zahav. Like Walter said, every cup was different. No two goblets were alike. And then v'chelim mikelim shonim. They brought unusual kelim. And those of you who remember, we lane that with the tuna vecha. Ve'ashkos b'chlei zahav v'chelim mikelim shonim. Because this was the vessels of the Beis HaMikdash that were now brought. And one of the Midrashim say that when the Jews saw that the Kelim were brought, they wanted to leave. And that's why the king made another party for them outside. And for the sin of using the vessels, he should have been punished immediately, just like Belshazzar was killed that night. Right, the writing on the wall that Daniel interpreted, he died that night. But it's in the merit of Achashverosh's future wife Esther and their son Darius, who would one day allow the Jews to rebuild the temple and return those vessels, that Achashverosh was not punished with loss of his throne. His festivity was saddened by the death of Vashti, but no other punishment was delivered to him. The V'yein Malchus Rav Kiyad Melech, royal wine in abundance. Now, here, all of this finery is described in the 7-day banquet. We don't hear anything about the 108-day banquet, which was done for the nobility and the officers. So Chazal say, a townsman who sees the king is not as a villager who sees the king. To the townsman, the sight of the king is not such a novelty, and he is less prone to indulge in lengthy descriptions. The villager to whom the sight of the king is a rare thrill is inclined to give his impressions at length. So there was no need for a lengthy description during the 180-day feast, because this is nobility and officers, they're used to it. But at the Shushan banquet for the regular people that were not normally exposed to lavishness, so there's more description called for. So the Gemara in Megillah says it shouldn't have said the kelim mikelim shonim. It should say mishunim, right? Strange. Amarava yatzta baskal v'armalam rishonim kalu b'nei kelim v'atem shonim b'hem. The earlier people died because of these kelim, referring to Belshazzar, and you're repeating it from the word shonim, from like Mishnah Torah. So they were really stupid for not, learning from what had happened to the prior kings who had used it. The Ramban, in his Chidushim and Gemara, asks a question. Now, the kelim that were brought by Nebuchadnezzar to Bavel were already taken back when Koresh allowed the Jewish people to go back. They took those kelim with them. So what kelim were they bringing out here? Because it says in Sefer Ezra that the people, the initial group that went with Koresh, brought those kelim back. So the Ramban says that the kelim, just like we talked, the Churban happened in 3 different segments. There was Yehoiakim, then 11 years later Yechoniah, and then 8 years later Tzidkiyahu. Each time other kelim were brought. These were the kelim that were brought by Yechoniah that had not been taken back by Koresh. I think it's a very, very important point. If you remember, Chizkiah HaMelech, when Chizkiah was king, when we learn in Lachim Beis, Melech Bavel sent shluchim, and Chizkiah showed them all of the temple treasures. And Yeshayahu Navi came to tell Chizkiyahu, Hinei yamim ba'im v'nasa kol asher b'veitecha v'asher atzru avotecha ad hayom hazeh bavela. Yeshayahu told Chizkiyahu, all of these kelim are going to be brought to Bavel. Umibanecha asher yatzu mimech asher tolid yichu v'ayu sarisi mechal melech Bavel. Your grandchildren, he was referring to Daniel, are going to be eunuchs in the house of Nebuchadnezzar. Vayomer Chizkiyahu Yeshayahu Tov Diber Hashem Asher Dibarta Vayomer Haloim Shalom V'Emet Yeh B'Yamai. Because he said he agrees with it, there was Shalom in Chizkiyahu's time. Why wasn't Chizkiyahu concerned about the pain that's going to occur to his grandchildren? So this is part of the way the Meforshim explain Magdim Refuah L'Makkah. Just like Esther is going to be placed in the palace as a refuah before Haman's extermination decree. So these children, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, that were Sarisim and Echal Melech Bavel, grew up in the house of Melech Bavel. And they served as a protection for the people, that they wouldn't be lost, that they would keep mitzvahs, like we learned when we went through Daniel. Same thing, the Kalim of the Beis HaMikdash that came to Bavel. There was a Yeshua. Sir, first of all, when Belshazzar put them out, he was killed. And that was the end of Malchus Bavel. And here, Vashti, the Malka, is going to be killed because of this Mishteh. And at this Mishteh, the Klei HaMikdash were taken out. And because Vashti was killed, Esther came in. So we see that everything is megalgel in a positive way, that the Kalim also were important for the protection of Klal Yisrael. Pasuk Ches. Ve'ashtiyah chadas eino nes. The drinking was according to law. Eino nes. Nobody was forced to drink. And we'll explain that in a minute. Ki chen yisar hamelech al kol rav beiso. The king had ordered all the officers of his house, lasot kirtzon ish va'ish, that each person could do what they want. So the Gemara brings Rav Levi that the tradition among the Persians was that when you went to someone's party, everybody was forced to drink from a large cup that contained 22 revius yayin, which is 2 quarts. They didn't care whether the person would die or would lose his sanity consuming this large amount of liquor. Achasveros placed this huge goblet on the table so that his guests would not think that he was stingy. But no one was forced to drink from it. He made the cup available, realizing that perhaps someone would want to drink, but they didn't force them to do that. That's what it means. The shtiyah was kadas, according to the regular proceedings, but eino nes, without coercion. Those who wished to drink from this traditional cup drank from it, and those who only wanted to take a small amount were free to take it. Nobody had to finish his drinking quickly to make his cup available to somebody else because they had so many drinking utensils, the way Walter explained. Now, ish va'ish. Who is ish va'ish? Haman and Mordechai. There are 2 places where they're called ish. Ish Yehudi aya b'Shushan Abira, ushmo Mordechai. And when Esther finally points out Haman, the Rasha, to Achashverosh, she says, Ish, Tsar ve'oyev. So both are referred to Ish. And both really didn't want compulsion to drink. Mordechai hoped that the Jews would not be forced to eat any part of the feast, and certainly not to drink. Haman hoped that the Jews would drink of their own free will, thus meriting punishment from Hashem. Some say both Mordechai and Haman didn't want them to participate. Mordechai said they wouldn't drink yayin nesach, And Haman wanted to embarrass them that they wouldn't be invited to the feast. Rashi brings that Mordechai agreed to be the Sara Mashkim. He was going to watch the wine that nobody would do Nisu Chayayin for Avodah Zarah. He would also add wood to the fire. We know that if our housekeepers are cooking, we open the fire, so it's not pasakum. So Mordechai was part of this because he wanted to make sure that it would not be pasakum.
But they also serve, according to Gemara and Megillah, they served kosher wine. There's a quote in Neam Loes.
Right, because I said Mordechai agreed to be the Sara Mashkim
Right.
to
So
protect the
kosher
wine so it would not become niso.
Oh, right. Yeah, Nessa. Yeah. Okay.
Pasuk tes. Gam Vashti Amalka asta mishte nashim. So too did Vashti. Gam just doesn't mean, also. There was meaning to here. Just as Achashverosh had opened up 6 treasuries, she did the same. Just as he wore the big day kahuna, she also put them on. And she put on the big day Kohen Gadol. Gam Vashti Amalka asta mishte nashim. Beit HaMalchut asher lamelech Achashverosh. The word legameim is to raise the foundation. So the gam is a hint that now is the time for Vashti to be raised or plucked, or to be trodden on, or to die. We're going to see a number of times here, sometimes Vashti Hamalka, and sometimes Hamalka Vashti. So, and there's a reason for it. I want to read the Malbim. Here, bring me this Mikros Gedolos. It's an important Malbim here. I'm going to read that those of you who have the Mikros Gedolos can follow along. I'm in the Malbim, Igeres HaPurim La Malbim. Lama asta Vashti mishte bichud. Why did Vashti make her own party? Ukra'a b'shem mishte noshim. And she called it the party for the women. Le'ezut tzorach mesaper zos. Why do we need this story? Umodia makom shaya b'veis HaMalchus. We have to know that it was in the palace too. So Achashverosh be'et shetafas kol HaMalchus shahayta tchilas tachat shevet Bavel. Achashverosh sort of took over the kingdom of Babylonia. And Lakach et Vashti lo leisha. This was like a political marriage with Vashti. Ayedechein hodu kula b'malchusa. She was the granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar. He is not the son of a king. So by marrying Vashti, he has claim to royalty. Yan shamlucha magilo benachal yedei Vashti she yereshes etzer. She is the Yerusha of this. V'atasha chashav machshavot limloch mamlacha b'li mugbelas. Now he wants to have no limit on his kingdom. Sha'al zeh charad kol hacharada zot b'shanatot kisol l'shishan. Why did he move his royal seat to Shushan? Uvasiyat ha'mishtekan sheratzah lachshiv et atzmo. He wanted to make himself important. Kilu kavasha mamlachuta elu, as if he had conquered all these provinces, Becharbo, but he didn't. He bought it through bribery. But he wanted uviyad chazaki imloch alehem. V'ratzah shesarei hamdinot yaskimu imo b'zeh she'ani gam lucha b'li bala. He wanted the officers and the governors to allow him to have sort of despotic, complete rule. And yimshol kirtzono. And now Hinei ata Yunusei Vashti kasilon mamir. The wedding to Vashti was important for him, Be'inav. Ki al yedei Nisui Vashti nechshav kilu me'atzmam kiblu lemelech. It's as if the people had accepted him as king, al yedei Yerusha's Vashti, like Vashti inheriting from his grandfather. Umimela dino kemelech hanasa b'bchiras ha'am. And therefore he would be a king as if he was chosen by the people.
But Vashti was also the daughter of Belshazzar.
She's the granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah, but she's the daughter of Belshazzar.
Okay.
She's the daughter of Belshazzar. So she's got more than that. I mean, it's Belshazzar who came after Nebuchadnezzar.
But Belshazzar ruled very shortly.
It
Nebuchadnezzar.
doesn't, whatever it is, but he ruled.
Correct. So, Lachen chashav machshavot v'hitnakel larot ki lo lakachet Vashti mitzad yichusa. But he wanted to show the people that he didn't take Vashti because of her yichus. V'lo yada yitzliach lemlucha, and it has nothing to do with Vashti that he was so successful. Ki be'ed kavash malchut miyad Bavel nifsaka machus Bavel. He wanted to point out that no, once Bavel was conquered by the Persians, there's no more Bavel. Uvashti batali adok keshvias cherev, and Vashti is in his hands like a prisoner. V'lo yadei yichusa l'kacha, and he has no interest in the yichus. Rak al yadei yofya, but she was beautiful. And he wanted to point out to the people, v'lo al yada balamucha, ki nafochu shehi malcha al yado. It's just the opposite. And that's why here she's called Vashti Amalka. Ki ein malchuta mitzad atzma rak al yadei Achashverosh. Ushma kodem l'malchusa. Her name is before the malchus. And then we'll keep track of when we keep on switch. So here we understand the way the Malbim is learning that he wants to be mavazer her by calling her Vashti, Hamalka, that he didn't really marry her for her yuchas. The party was in decorated rooms, since a woman would rather have well-decorated rooms and beautiful clothes than eat fatted calves. That's what the Medrash says. And that's why it was done in such beauty. Both of them had kavana. When it says Gam Vashti al Malka, the Gemara in Megillah says, Shnei Lidvar Averin is Kavnu. They were both interested in Znus. He was interested in Znus, and she was in Zen Noev, Vizu Noefes. He's an adulterer, she's an adulteress. This was her inner tchuna as well. Vashti. That's the Gam. Bayom HaShvi'i, Pasuk Yud. Bayom HaShvi'i, on the seventh day, was Shabbos, says Rashi. And according to the Medrash that we learned, it's Yom Kippur. Bayom HaShvi'i, Katov Lev HaMelech Bayayin. He was good and drunk. Omar Limuhuman, Bistach Harvona, Biktav Avaktaz, Zetav Karkash. These 7 officers, Shivat HaSarisim, the chamberlains, HaMeshartim Espnei HaMelech HaChashverosh. The Medrash says that Vashti used to take Jewish girls, strip them of their clothing, and make them work on Shabbos. Therefore, Mida Keneged Mida, it's on Shabbos that her punishment overtook her. And she was also made to appear in public stripped of her clothing. From the first day until the 7th day, Mordechai and the Sanhedrin fasted and prayed that Hashem should not destroy the Jews. And on the 7th day, Hashem responded by causing Vashti's rebellion against the king and eventually her downfall. There are midrashim that the Jewish people were learning Torah on Shabbos. They were singing Zmiros. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu was happy. And this is part of how Vashti got removed from the scene. HaKadosh Baruch Hu having pity on Klal Yisrael because of their positive participation on Shabbos. the Gemara says that Vashti, when she was sent for, so she sent bizoyon answers to Nebuchadnezzar. He would say, my father Belshazzar used to drink wine that 1,000 men drank and didn't get drunk. And Achashverosh drinks a little bit and he loses his mind. And other insults that other insults that embarrassed him, that she said publicly in front of the women, which is part of the reason why she was considered like a Merida. She was rebelling against the king, which deserved the death penalty. One of the Midrashim says that the Jewish people didn't come to the Mishnah on Shabbos because of Chilul Shabbos. They didn't want to step on the grass, on the flowers, that they didn't want to. Some of their drinks would cause the flowers to grow. Maybe they would uproot some of the plants, so they didn't come. They stayed at their homes. They made a Suda Shabbos. They ate a nice chulent. They studied Torah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw that and was the beginning of the Yeshua. We know the Gemara in Sanhedrin Lamed Ches says Nichnas Yayin Yatsa Sod. That what that means is when a person drinks wine, his inner soul is revealed. It says in Erevin Daf Samech B'Shloisha Dvorim Adam Niker B'Kiso, B'Koso, V'Kaso. How he spends his money, how he drinks his wine, and how angry he gets. And this is the difference between the Jewish people and the non-Jews. That the inners of the non-Jews is the taiva and the znus. But in the Klal Yisrael, the pnimius was the ratzon to do HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will. As it says, Ribono Olamim, it says in Brachos Yud Zayin, Galuv Yadol Fanecha Shertzono Lasos Ritzonecha, Umima Akev the Yetzahara V'Shibud Malchus. That's why the whole Megillah is a Lashon Gilui, is Megala on hidden things.
Only, but by the way, we learned the Gemara says that Bekoso doesn't mean how he drinks his wine, it means Bekoso how he pours the wine for his orchim. No, it's Gemara that says that.
Right, that's the Gemara, Kiso, Koso, Kaso.
So yeah, but
Right.
we don't know not how he drinks the wine, how he can hold the wine, but it's how he
gives to others.
Right.
And the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yud Ches, Kol HaMishamer Shabbos Kilchoso, Afilo Oved Avodah Zara Kedor Enosh Mochlin Lo. So the fact that Klal Yisrael, or portions of Klal Yisrael, participated in a Shabbos in a proper way, even though some others might have been participating in Avodah Zara, it protected them. Yeah, we talk about the Bnos Yisrael. So on the Yom HaShvi, command was given that Vashti should come in front of the king, wearing the crown, La Rosa Amim Basarim Es Yafia, Ki Tovas Marehi. She was beautiful. And when it says Becheter Malchus, means that the only thing she should be wearing is her crown. Otherwise, she should be naked. The Yaros Dvash says that the day that the Mishnah occurred was Tesvav Nisan, first day of Pesach. The same day that Belshazzar was killed. That's when we say Balayla, one of the Zmiris by the Haggadah is all the things that happen at
How
night.
could it go from Yom Kippur all the way through to
No,
to
because
Pesach?
there's another opinion that says that the 180 days went from Tishrei to Nisan. Just like we made the calculation from Nisan to Tishrei, there's another opinion that the 180 days was exactly reverse.
Okay.
When it says Katov Leva Melech Bayayin, we're going to see that many times when it says Melech, it refers to Kadosh Baruch Hu. And what it means here was Hashem was happy in the Daled Koisos that Yisrael were Makayim, the Leila Seder. So if this Mishnah was going on, like we said, Seder night, Hashem was happy because of the Jewish people drinking the Daled Koisos.
Happy for them by the Mishnah of Chashverosh, or happy for them when they drank the Dalet Koisos?
When they were drinking the Daled Koisos by their Seder, Hashem was happy. That's the Katov Leva Melech Bayoyin. That's Malka Shel Oilam Shesamach B'Yayin Shel Dalet Koisos Yisrael Makayim B'Leila Seir Alayla Hamuchan L'Geula. Okay, this is a good place to stop. Where did we go up to Yud Aleph? There's a lot of material, thank God, more so in the beginning of the Megillah. And there's a lot of material. Many of you also please bring and make whatever comments you would like to make. There's a lot of material on Sefer Esther. And I think it's a very nice, it's wonderful that everyone is participating. Please, I encourage everyone to continue doing so.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good vote, everybody.
Good,
Goodbye.
good.
Shavua Tov, everybody.
Hang on, Rav Cook, we're having a shiur on Rav Cook
Shavua Tov.
in our home at 8:00 Wednesday night with Nati Baram.
He's got to send out the announcement. I don't think there was an announcement.
Maybe it's not this Wednesday. Maybe it's the next Wednesday.
No, it should be this Wednesday. He said he was. Okay, I'll talk to him. Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay.
Bye.
Shkoyach, Ernie.
Shavua Tov, everybody. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.
Good.